our last topic is one that is a little bit more serious or a basketball one, but just as serious as our father one. Is the idea of code switching? Now, if you're watching this show or listening to this podcast, you're kind of going, "What does code switching mean?" Well, on this podcast are 10 men of color, and so with that, there are responsibilities that we carry in terms of how we carry ourselves in different spaces and places with different people. And so there's certain moments when we're with our own family, when we're with our own friends of like mind, like us, where there is the proverbial ability to let our hair down and be ourselves. And then there are moments when we are with people of other races and other backgrounds where we are to be our full selves is to almost be at 11 in some respects in some people's minds when we need to be at a 7. And so the idea of code switching is recognizing what room you're in and realizing that sometimes you can't go, some would say, full black in every other room. But to be the opposite of that could be seen as being white or being something other than yourself. We all know that you can't take this off. We wake up and there's no idea of not being able to see color. We are color the moment we wake up, the moment we go to sleep every single day. But there's this idea of being black and what that looks like. And all of us, we are in ministry in some way, shape, or form. We are in public. We're not public influencers, but we're in public in different ways and shapes and forms. And so there is the person that we are, and then there's the performance of who people are expecting us to be too. So I just want to have a conversation about that, a real conversation about those struggles, about those things. And then in light of that, we have kids, some of us that we're raising, and how do we raise them up to be who they are supposed to be and not what society wants them to be. So who's in there first? Let's jump in.
I'm right here. I'm right here, man.
Go for it,
I,
Bart.
I think there's actually three states and not just two states. It's not just on or off or just the switch of one. I think there are two states of whether my there is like the one that I've been taught, the one that comes that I do with my own culture that it relates, and then there is the preferred. The one, what do I do when no one's around? How do I speak? How do I behave? That's one thing that has to be identified. Like I remember when Blackish first came out, and it was new, and it brought to the light to a lot of people like the culture of the transformation of culture and how how Andre was raised versus how he now has to raise his children, and particularly I think it's like one of the first few episodes about the head nod and about how recognizing somebody else and how we now have our own way of communicating because of the head nod, because we know that, okay, I see you, you see me, the struggle is real, I got you, we're here. And that also, even though it's nonverbal, is part of communicating. The world that we live in, regardless of your political beliefs or social economics beliefs, is geared for a certain quote unquote normalcy. So, people are looking to hear certain things. I if people are looking to hear and see certain things in certain contexts, and if it doesn't fit that context, then look out of place. Like you said, Chris, we're all people of color here. I dropped my daughter off at school, last year, or maybe was it last year or 2 years ago when she first went on the bus. I got to cut through a catwalk in a different school. My kid goes on a bus to a different school, and on the way there, it's cool because I got my daughter with me. On the way back, I don't cut through the school because it sends a different message for this big black guy to be cutting through elementary school with other kids around. So how we behave when we're around certain people, I think, is dictated predominantly or primarily by the standardization, for lack of a better term, of what it's like. Think of it like, if I was to call it something, think of it, it's like a moving scale, like a pH balance. There is a neutral, and then there is like, okay, if this is something that is too alkaline, or is this something that's too acidic, and we got to
Yeah.
find where do I move my needle on this scale
Yeah.
of taste. You know what I mean? So there has to be something that has to be said for that. Me particularly, a lot of people would say that I'd be more quote unquote white, but at the same time, it's one of those things where when you see, because we mirror media so much, and because we live in Canada, which gets dominated with American media, when I see my boys when I see friends from high school, it's amazing how everything comes back, and it's like, yo, what's good? You're dapping people up as if it's nothing. But at the same time, because I do like live streams and I'm somewhat of a public figure, then the way I speak and present that way is different. I think it's more becoming palatable to every situation that you are, but at the same time, though that can be problematic in itself, because other cultures don't have to do that.
Yeah.
White people don't gotta adapt to wherever they're going to be. Tim, you're super close.
Tim, just sorry for those of you who are just wondering why we're laughing. Tim's camera just zoomed in on his lips.
Oh.
Yo,
and he hasn't fixed it.
He still hasn't fixed it.
And he still hasn't fixed it.
Him up close and personal.
So right now.
This episode
want everyone to know
brought to you
that
by
Colgate.
Yes, we get it. We get it. You have a we got a camera that can zoom in. We got it. We got it.
Hakeem. You got your glasses.
Now we're starting a chain of events.
All right,
you guys.
That's all
Bart, finish off.
We're off the rails, fam. We're off the
all right. Bart, bring us back to center.
Yeah, I do think because I know this is going to be a hot topic, I'm going to say all my pieces now. I do think in raising people of color, whether they're male or female, they are going to be even more hyper aware of how to behave than even we are, because again, media plays such a. And this can be a big topic, because a lot of us have Caucasian wives, God bless them, and I always tell people, I said, you know what? A lot of that I think also has to do with like what I saw on TV. There weren't a lot of women of color on television. There weren't a lot of people that had those type of roles and in movies and stuff like that. So when we look at our children and how they are raised and what they see and what they know and what they understand, they are going to be even more hyper aware than what we were. When you think about if you want to get a lot of likes on Instagram or on TikTok, how do I behave? What mannerisms are then considered to be cool?
That's really good.
So, you know what I mean? So people then want to say, well, I got to do what I got to do if I want to fit in, and I got to do what I got to do if I want to get the like, if I want to pop off, if I want to get that attention. So it's such a complicated idea to navigate, but it's amazing how fast our brains adapt, even subconsciously, and we switch night and day.
Jason.
So I'll just really pinpoint from the American context, because to me, when I think about it, just growing up in the States and then coming here, it's very different. And to be honest, I'm always aware of who I am as being an African-American man, and people around me in the States are always aware, even so much more than I would say here in Canada. So I know that being an actual professional and even being a pastor, I had to carry myself a certain way. So then when I was around certain circles, when I was around people who weren't like me or talk like me, then I'm like, okay, even I have to adjust, because that's the way I have to adjust. And to be honest, every culture has a language. And, the Black culture has its own type of a language, which might be our slang. So when we're around each other, that's something that we use. But that's not the intellectual language that is used everywhere else. So it's important that I've noticed that when we're around certain areas, yes, I do change the way how I talk. I do change the way how I speak. But because, obviously now being an adult, being a pastor, working in the second word, being around professionals, now many the slang and terminology that I used to use all the time on a daily around my friends and my boys and my family, most of the time now I don't use that as much as I used to. But also I've noticed just in general, just how much that one part that I've seen that is sad is some people not understanding and knowing the room that they're in. I've seen some of our people be in rooms and it's almost embarrassing because they don't know how to respond to that type of room, because you can still be a certain person. I can still be a Black man and still carry my culture, but I can still be articulate. And so it's very important that people are able to handle themselves in that type of position. So being a black man, having a brown wife, being two minorities, it's been important for us to even now I teach my son about his culture, but also knowing that as he gets older, like, all right, when you're in this type of environment, this is how you carry yourself. This is how you actually conduct yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to pinpoint exactly what you just said there again, Jason. You just said that, there's different languages for different rooms. The difference that I want to identify is in our culture, the culture at large, Western culture, success has a language. And if you want to be deemed successful, or if you want to be deemed articulate, or if you want to be deemed just not ghetto, then you automatically, in society's view, have to adjust your approach, because I can't act the same way I would with my homies. You know what I mean? Like when I was in high school, I can't carry that behavior all throughout my adolescence into my professional career. There's no way anyone's going to take us serious. And the problem that we have is getting better now with shows like Blackish and different shows that are coming out. For a long time, when you looked at movies, when you looked at a lot of TV shows, black characters were the ghetto type. Black characters, not all, there were other shows, obviously, but a lot of the time when you look at big blockbuster movies, when you see something that's mainstream, the black character is somebody who speaks a certain way, who speaks like Shanae, who always has to be in trouble. I literally, I kid you not, and I don't want to get too political, like with what I'm about to say, but the show my kids were watching yesterday, I turned off halfway through. It's a show from 100 Huntley Street, and it's like a kid show for, I think it's not Moesha, but something like that, Moesha, or something like that. And they're talking about like etiquette, and it's her dressed up in like an old like Aunt Jemima outfit, and the guy speaking very nicely. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And I'm like, so look at this. So Moesha, or whatever her name is scratching her hair with her fork, and he's saying, no. We use this fork to eat the pizza, and we do this. And she's like, what are you talking about? I eat my pizza like this. And I'm like, turn this garbage off right now. Even in this day, there is still that culture is perpetuated in front of our young people. So they think that that's what we are. That's what culture is. And then when you look at that, how it's being portrayed as that success, or the person who's articulate, or the person who has poise in that picture is somebody who does not look like them. That's my piece.